do we want to jump to the next one? Sorry, I'll let you. I'll let you lead
Please.
this.
No,
Okay.
go ahead. We could jump to the worst value. Go ahead. Worst value. Who do you got?
So worst value. This one I think is a lot of people's worst value, so I won't spend too much time on him. But Esteury Ruiz at pick 121. Please, if you are drafting,
I think both of your worst values actually are very popular worst value
yeah,
picks.
yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Well, and that's why, I try to, and this is actually, I had a lot of trouble trying to find worse values because I think there are a lot of good values in the outfield, this position, especially even late in drafts. I mean, we could talk about that when we talk about our sleepers and prospect people, but Esteury Ruiz at pick 121, please do not draft Esteury Ruiz at pick 121. I see his min value, his min pick in NFBC was 47. Like,
Was that
come
just one
on.
idiot though? Like sometimes you have to
I
wonder.
don't know. It doesn't say, but so his min value was 47, and the max pick was 224. If you're getting him about pick 200, okay, fine, I see it. Take the gamble, but he's just a one trick pony, and we've talked about him before. Obviously, that trick is elite, but he doesn't hit the ball hard. I think, was the worst in average EV last year out of all MLB players who qualified. He's on a terrible team. He's going to lead off. He's going to steal 50 bases, but the caveat to that, we see this all the time with speed only guys. If he pulls a hamstring, you got nothing. Like, there's no world or no scenario where now the A's are going to limit him running and he's going to go out and perform any fantasy worthy value. Like, that's it. Like, if his running or his legs give out for whatever reason, you just wasted a top 150 pick. So could not be more out on Esteury Ruiz at that price.
Yeah. I agree with you. That's but people get so caught up with the stolen bases. And the thing that I think we talked about this on a previous episode, you don't have to get as caught up to draft for stolen bases only anymore because stolen bases are so much more prevalent in the league now.
And
And it's
I
an
do want to,
adjustment that you have to make.
yeah, yeah, and I do want to point out too, I won a league last year with the Esteury Ruiz on my team. Like, you can do it. I'm just saying not at this price.
Exactly. And that's when we talk worst value across the board. Now, my worst value, one of my guys I think you should stay away from even at his price, which is 260, and that's Kris Bryant. I'm seeing him about 260. The decline is heavy, and like if you're not hitting home runs in Coors Field, you're not going to be very
What are you
good.
doing? Yeah.
So I just, he has that name value. And a lot of times when I go with my worst value, I go with someone who has that name value that people generally tend to lean towards. They're like, oh, it's Kris Bryant. But he's not the guy who won a World Series with your Cubbies a bunch of years ago. I'm afraid none of those guys are anymore. I mean, you look around the league, right? You look
Really
at
bad.
Rizzo, you look at all those guys. It's crazy. It doesn't feel like that long ago that you won the World Series. Certainly not compared to 108 years, right? But um, yeah, I just, not the same guy anymore. And I would stay away from him entirely.
Yeah, not a bad one. I wouldn't hate. So let's see. He's going at 266. Isn't terrible, but yeah, you're right. Give me Leo Taveras, who's going about 10 picks after, and Brian De La Cruz, MJ Melendez. I mean, all these guys are going after. Sal Frelick, Parker Meadows. Yeah, I'm not going to take Kris Bryant at that price. I think that's a good call.
Yep. And your second one, I love this pick. I saw this a bunch of places. There's another guy who's going similar in a similar range as Kris Bryant. Probably about 10 picks before him is your second worst value.
So yeah, this guy is a player who is near and dear to my heart. I've had many good seasons with him as a fantasy player, but it is Whit Merrifield, who is going at pick 257, which definitely feels low enough, right? 257. Oh, that's flyer territory for some 12 team leagues, right? And he just signed an $8 million contract to play with the Phillies, right? And so on the surface, all of those things look great, but he doesn't have a spot in the lineup. Like, there's nowhere that he's going to play. He's not going to play second base. He's not really going to play infield. The outfield is pretty loaded as is. There's no spot at the DH. So I have no idea where he's going to play. He's 35, 36 years old. Will turn 36 this year. So his numbers have slowly declined over the last few years. Like, he's declined well, but just there's still a decline there. There's just so many guys I'd rather have at that price or later. Another thing I do want to point out that, maybe isn't fantasy related or doesn't really matter, but he signed this contract to be in Philly, but I think that's because his wife, so I think what he lives in, I want to say it's the East Coast somewhere. I don't know if it's in Philly or near Philly, but his wife, I think, is actually pregnant. and will be giving birth sometime this summer. So
So he wants to stay close to
there's a
home.
chance he wants to stay close to home, and he signed this contract, one more year, $8 million. I'm just going to kind of play a role here, and hey, maybe I can still win a World Series. Like, this team's good enough, I can help them
Yeah.
out when it comes to it. But
And
I'm
be
not
like a
going to be a key
utility
contributor.
role guy.
Yes, I'm not going to be a key contributor, but I am going to be around. So I'm not
So he's
wasting a
from
ton.
North Carolina. I don't know if he currently lives there, but yeah.
Yeah, so I knew it was somewhere East Coast, and so maybe just Philly is one of the closer
Yep.
places, and that just kind of
Yeah,
makes
for
sense.
sure.
So
And with him, I remember years ago before he popped off, having him on my fantasy team, probably 2018, maybe, when he was first and people were first starting to take notice with him. And I remember having him on my team, and I went to a Tigers game in April, and there was nobody there, and I met him in the parking lot after the game because there was literally nobody there. It was Tigers Royals in literally like sleet, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
just Midwestern weather in early April. It was like one of the first series of the season. So yeah, I'm also a big Whit Merrifield guy, but I agree with you. I just don't think the value is there for him. And my other guy also I like a lot. And I kind of know personally too, but I just don't, and I think he's a good player. I just, first of all, what's always been weird with him is even when he was getting a lot of hits, his production wasn't there. I thought last year was almost fluky good. And I could see him losing playing time really easily, and that's Austin Hayes. If Colton Cowser is coming up, if they're we talked about Santander already. Austin Hayes, one of two things could happen with him. He could get moved from the Orioles, and then you're taking him out of a really good lineup, or he could just not get playing time. And that would be the problem for Austin Hayes. And so while I think he still is a solid guy, a solid option, I would stay away from him because I'm just scared of how much playing time he's going to have.
yeah, I think that's a good call. He could get traded, but I think it's much more likely that Baltimore wants to keep depth. I mean, he's
As like
under
a
team
fourth
control.
outfielder.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? I mean, yeah, I agree with that. So good call out. It's unfortunate because I like him too, but I don't think he's better than a lot of these young guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about with like him and Mart and Santander also, where it's like those are both guys who kind of were with the team as the team's growing up and getting better, and now finally you think it pays off for them. Um, and even a guy like Cedric Mullins, he's just not the same player he was. If they were the same guys that they were a couple years ago with this really young team, it would be really fun. Um, but I think right now the Orioles have a pretty clear idea of what they want to do, and it's the youth movement in Baltimore. And so Austin Hayes, I think, is going to be kind of the odd man out there in that outfield.
Yeah, yeah, good call out.
Yep.